90% in the next decade. And we won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Because of you.
Gracias a ti.
Because of you.
There is St. Jude.
Welcome back to Perspectives of Interfaith. My name is Zarina Shakir, and we have with us today a brother who's a part of what is called the Krishna consciousness, and it would be Bhakti Vasudeva Swami, and he is originally from Nigeria but resides in the United States. And we were speaking about your particular faith tradition and some of the things that we're just trying to learn more about. But as we were on our break, we got into a discussion about some of the things that our other faith traditions may or may not be a part of. Some of it, like ego. And I was sharing with Swami that I heard one friend of mine saying that ego means edging God out. And so how would you, in terms of us trying to raise our consciousness around spirituality, think about something like that? And how do you help or others that may want to be better in their life and their spirituality?
Yeah. You know, ego is one of the basic factors that is affecting individual spiritual growth and collective conscious awareness. Now, the ego is just part of the subtle or astral body. We have the astral body, the body we find ourselves in a dream state is called astral or subtle body. And that body basically is constituted of three subtle elements. We have the mind, the ego. In other words, the ego is just part of the subtle body. But the ego is so difficult, the mind, intelligence, and ego. The ego is so difficult to deal with. It is the greatest trouble that the spiritualist has to deal with.
Well, how do people develop such strong egos sometimes? Everyone isn't there. And there are some people that it doesn't seem an issue. I'm sure everyone has some sort of ego issues, but others are way over the top.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean, it's like when we say this person has a high ego, ego in itself is not a bad thing.
Right.
But there's what we call the false ego. There's the real ego, there's the false ego. The false ego is when we identify with these bodies, thinking, I am such and such. I am the greatest. Or, like you mentioned, we try to edge God out. We think we are the controllers. We have that, what in Vedic language or in Sanskrit is called Ishwara Bhav, thinking or having a mindset that I am in charge of everything. And so I'm greater than everyone else. If I'm thinking like that, I will never be humble. No. If even I have something that is, I did something wrong or I'm incorrect and someone tries to correct me, then I feel, hey, I know everything. You don't know anything. This is one of the problems. And it's a problem that is all pervasive. In the military, in politics, in household life, in education, in the workplace, people are very egotistic.
Okay.
And therefore, we find that the higher the ego, the higher that person or that individual has identified with this body, which is not the real personality.
Gotcha. So then let's take another space and speak about Nigeria and how sometimes those egos, in terms of the leadership, has taken over, and many people suffer because of someone's ego. We just went through a new election, and I think the way they had set things in place, the former president was thinking he was probably going to win. Jonathan
Dr. Jonathan, good luck.
Good luck, right. Wrong name in this case. but but he did not win. But still, what happens, what I've seen in Nigeria often is how the leadership either comes from the military or people who are very high up there in terms of their financial status. So speak to me a little bit about some of the unfortunate corruptness that has taken place.
Yeah, I had a publication, and one of my I had a publication relating to that, a number of publications relating to, the political situation in Nigeria. My works, I have a number of works, over 30 publications in academic journals and books. And one of them basically addresses the issue of, the way the society or the country is run by, kleptomaniacs, people who use their pen to steal.
Kleptomaniacs. Okay, he said it.
So the point is, when people begin to think that, I will not die. The future is foreordained. I control everything. They don't seem to realize that everyone is going to die. And so they keep on accumulating, but you find that everybody lives even what they have accumulated over the years to die, and then people who did not really steal with them or did not suffer with them, they have to be the ones who have to bear the consequence. I mean, who have to, bait on those resources and use those resources. So you work so hard to accumulate much, but how long are you going to stay on the planet?
Yeah.
Therefore, people who are people who are deficient in higher or transcendental culture, transcendental knowledge, they tend to think that, life means eat, drink, and be merry unlimitedly, and use whatever powers you have to maintain your position. Use whatever powers you have to seize power.
Right.
And, let everyone else be your subordinate, you subjugate everyone else, and then you control all the resources. But how long can we stay on the planet again?
Right.
Therefore, people who have deficiency in spiritual values, in higher principles of knowledge, and in practical relationship with other people, they're the ones who just struggle so hard. And, we all have our limits.
True.
When it's our time, we just have either silently, peacefully, or forcefully. We will move away from that very zone. And therefore, we find people who even sat on power for years and years and years, and another person comes and hits them on the head with a bullet. Boom. We find cases like that. So the point is, power is very intoxicating. When you have power, it is so difficult with some people, especially when the ego is very high. It's so difficult to give up, to do away with the power. But the same power, if you sit on it for too long, some bullet is going to enter your
Some type of
some type of challenge.
Yes.
You're going to face. That's what I mean.
So, well then, let us get back to your faith tradition, Krishna consciousness. And I had a question around what is the difference in the Krishna consciousness and yogi and yoga?
Yeah.
And how does that come into play, or do they overlap in any way? Yeah,
so a basic thing, when we say Krishna consciousness, Krishna means God. Or in a nutshell, in Sanskrit, the word Krishna means the all-attractive personality of Godhead. God is all-attractive. And so when do we say someone is attractive? If he has so much wealth, if he has beauty, if he's very knowledgeable. If someone, for instance, has 3 PhDs, everybody in the community will say, he's my friend, he's my brother, he's my uncle, he's my this. So these are some of the things that make people attractive. Beauty, knowledge, fame, power. Krishna has all of the qualities, God has all of the opulences, so he's called Krishna. Like just like we have Jehovah, it means some definite quality of God.
Right.
Yahweh, it reflects a particular quality of God. So Krishna means all attractive personality of God. Therefore, in Krishna consciousness, we are teaching basic principles of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti means the science of devotion. Yoga means connecting. Yoga comes from the Sanskrit word yukta, which means to connect. To connect with what? With divinity. So yoga, basically, Bhakti Yoga in essence means systematic approach to practices that will allow us to connect with divinity.
So now when people are doing this form of yoga, they're not, I don't think, understanding that there's this connection to God. They're just exercising a different way. They're not doing Zumba and they're not doing aerobics. They're doing, I'm in yoga now, you know. So what you're saying though, there's a spiritual side and not just that physical.
Exactly.
Okay.
Those physical gymnastics are just to keep the physical body fit for more sense gratification. But the underlying principle or beyond that is the idea that the yoga practice should connect us, should link us with God. For instance, there are different yoga processes, and the primary one is about sitting in a particular position, doing some particular breathing exercises, and all those things. Those are the preliminary stages. But we should not sit on the preliminary stage for a whole lifetime.
Okay, okay, which I think some people just think that's all it is. Then, now let me ask you, in terms of your garb, what you're wearing, do people look at you and wonder, and even come to you and ask, so why do you have this on?
Right. I know. I remember I was in Manhattan the other day. I was just coming from a friend's home. I was going to the car. And one pregnant lady who was crossing, she came back to me and said, "Hey, I like this your dress. How is it?"
So did she want it? Or?
So, the point is, it attracts people in some ways that they may come to make inquiries. So I explained to her that I'm a monk of the Krishna consciousness movement, and this is the garb of a monk. But it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to dress in this way, because I'm in the monastic order, so I dress in this way.
So, as being a monk, does that mean that you never marry?
A monk, for instance, like we have in Catholicism, we have the Reverend Fathers and all the rest. So, yeah, a few people in our Krishna consciousness movement, they are full-time monks.
Okay.
So, they're like the Catholic Reverend Fathers and Holy Ghost Fathers and all the rest of them.
But, my question is,
so, yeah,
does that mean that they're celibate, they don't marry?
They're celibate.
Yes.
A monk is not married. In other words, he is not circumscribed to just a small family. The whole world is his family.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in other words, the love that he should invest on only one woman or some 2 kids, he invests that love on the global family.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, there are different forms of love.
All right.
So, when you first came into Krishna consciousness, were you in a training program?
Yeah.
Did you go through some sort of an educational process?
Yeah. We went
so kind of give us a little background on that.
Now, in our time, when you join for 6 months, you have to go through what we call, introductory or a program that will allow you to explore, to have more time for reading, more time to be able to explore on the basic tenets of Krishna consciousness and the practices. So that was required because we are prepared, you are being prepared to be able to share the Vedic tradition, the Vedic principles.
You're saying Vedic.
Vedic. Yeah. Vedic.
Could you spell that?
Vedic.
Vedic.
It comes from the word Veda. Veda. We use the Vedas, and because the Vedas are the ancient, scriptural writings that discuss about everything that you need to know. In this world, whether it is science, philosophy, economics, whatever you need to do. Even medicine, everything is embedded in the bed. It's like the encyclopedia that gives you an overview or introspection into the purpose of human life, where we are coming from, where we are going, and how to develop loving relationship with God or Krishna, or Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, that is entailed in the Vedas.
Now, let me bring in, let's say, younger people. Are there many young people that are a part of the Krishna
Krishna
consciousness?
movement?
Yes.
There
I
are
mean,
many people.
now, don't be offended, but
No.
I remember when I would see the Hare Krishna
Right.
people at the airport passing out little flyers and things like that. So is this a part of that? And also, what is the attraction that, let's say, young people may have for this?
Yeah, a number of young people are attracted to this movement because, as you're growing, you want to explore, you want to understand higher principles of life, and so you see something or you hear something intriguing, and you get attracted to it. So you want to investigate more, and then it seems more juicy, and then you want to go, you want to dig deeper, you want to dig deeper. So that is how a number of us, when we are even young adults, we came into Krishna consciousness because we wanted to really understand things beyond, what ordinary person might have known. So there are a number of young people who are attracted to these teachings, and by the time they undergo some training in terms of how to live the lifestyle and how to be able to help to create a positive change in society, beginning with their own particular life, then they are able to facilitate the growth of the communities that they operate in.
Now I'm going to ask you something that I think might be a little more personal, but are there many African Americans that are attracted to coming into the Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, and for instance, I'll give you a typical example. In Nigeria is about a population of 135 million people, but in Nigeria alone we have about six sciences from the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. So a number of, and all the local leaders in West Africa, they are blacks.
Okay.
And then we have, in every city we have practically, major cities in West Africa, we have temples. And like we have a festival coming up first week of June, a festival that is going to take about, that is up to about 7 days festival, international festival. People are coming from all over the world. And it's taking place in Togo, in West Africa there. So you see the dominant, faction of the people there, they're blacks. So a lot of blacks are attracted. One reason for that is that the African traditional philosophy and the Krishna consciousness teachings, they are very similar. For instance, life after death. The concept of we are not this physical body. We are part and parcel of God. The concept of life after death. The concept of requital epistemology. All these things are also embedded in African traditional philosophy. And so the traditional Africanist, when he gets exposed to these teachings, they say, what? We know this, we know this. So it's not much of a big deal. Yeah.
But see, as I'm listening to you and even some of the language, some of the English words that you're using, epistemology, that is not exactly like a basic grassroots term. And so I'm wondering how people, let's say on a grassroots level or the masses, are able to understand really what this form of spirituality is, which seems very natural, as we would say in Islam, fitra, the nature of things. So how do you explain it to people that are maybe even illiterate?
Yeah, it is simple. Our books are written in very simple English language, and anyone who can read and write will be able to understand. The books are also translated into different languages, like in local languages, and then people read, and those who read in local languages, they'll be able to, for instance, Yorubas, Hausas, Igbos, the books are also translated into different local languages.
I see.
And so they have, access to it.
Now, another thing that I'm thinking about, particularly in terms of your garb, what is the difference, let's say, between you the Krishna consciousness movement and, let's say, Buddhism or the Buddhist monks?
Yeah, that looks like a little bit of slight difference, because in Buddhism the ultimate understanding, ultimate appreciation is different from the Krishna perspective of the ultimate appreciation. In the Krishna consciousness, the ultimate appreciation is based on the three phases of realizing God. We have the concept of God all being pervasive, it's called Brahman.
Brahman, yes.
And the localized aspect of God is called Paramatma, or what we call in Christendom the Holy Ghost. And then beyond this localized aspect of God, we also have that understanding that God is also living in his spiritual kingdom, in his spiritual world.
Okay.
So this is the that is the ultimate conception, or ultimate understanding. Those are the basic principles that are being taught for the purpose of realizing God. Now, in Buddhism, the concept is ending with nirvana. In other words, you just merge into the nirvana, and that's it. But that is what basically clarifies the point of personalism and impersonalism conceptions of spirituality.
Okay.
And so Buddhism is basically that aspect of the impersonalism, whereas the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition is that aspect of personalism. In other words, God, we are reflections of God. But God is spiritual. These bodies are ephemeral. The bodies are temporary, transitory. Whereas God has eternal form, which is full of bliss and knowledge in full manifestation. So we can't compare our physical bodies to the form of God. God has a form, but he's spiritual.
Okay. Now, what kind of I think we're getting ready to wrap this up.
Okay.
We went from 5 minutes to like 0 very quickly. But the last question I did want to ask has to do with gender and how many women are really a part of the Krishna
Well, there are so
consciousness.
many women, even women.
And do they have leadership?
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Okay.
The women, there's a predominance of women leadership, for instance, in America in the Krishna movement.
Okay.
I just came from Arizona, and the temple at Tucson, Arizona, the leader is a woman. In a number of our communities, we have a big community in Florida, and in Alachua, the leader is a woman. In a number of the places, it's women who are managing and are in charge of leadership.
Okay.
So the question of gender discrimination is non-existent.
Non-existent. I mean, that's wonderful. I just got to cue that. We do have another couple of minutes.
Okay.
I want to ask you about the eating practices.
Eating practices, yes.
What you all eat. You're vegetarian?
Yeah,
I believe.
we're
Yes.
vegetarians.
Okay.
We are not just vegetarians, we are actually Krishnatarians.
Krishnatarians.
Yes.
Which is? Okay.
Which is that, because even the vegetables that you cook, the vegetables have life. So if you simply eat the vegetables, you are also going to incur some type of sinful reactions.
So you're going to say it's raw?
No.
Mostly?
If even it's raw, you are eating something and you're eating life.
Yes.
So,
Right. I thought about that when we were talking about killing humans and animals.
Right.
So,
But the point is, when the Creator, because there's a prescription. If you want a medication in this country, in America, you don't just go to the store or to this pharmacy and say, give me this medicine. Where is the doctor's prescription? The doctor has prescribed medicine, you can take it. They will give it to you, no query. Therefore, there's a prescription for what we are supposed to eat and the process that we should undergo. Vegetarianism is not just about you have to take the food and eat. If you eat that, it's also not so good. Therefore, the food has to be offered, that vegetable that you're taking, which the consciousness is so low, the reaction is so low, but if you offer that food to God, that vegetable to God, then you don't have any reactions anymore. Because that is a prescription by God himself in the scriptures. in the
You
Vedic
all
literatures.
don't drink alcohol.
Alcohol is not something that people should even drink because it has a lot of adverse effects on mental health and physical health.
Right, right.
We don't drink.
Okay. So
We don't drink alcohol. We don't also take other types of hard drugs or whatever.
of course.
Yeah.
So where do you go from here?
I'm going to Boston.
To Boston.
Right.
And are you giving a speech or
Yeah,
are
yeah.
you
I'm
with-
called. I'm going to give some talks in our center, and then also to hold some programs at some universities there.
Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you. I know that we didn't get to cover some of the questions that I had, but we did get to cover quite a bit, and I do hope and pray that our audience was able to get a better understanding of the, now let me get it right, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness,
Correct.
which is ISKCON.
Sure.
And this, our guest today was His Holiness Bhakti Vasudeva Swami.
Correct.
Did I get it right this
Sure.
time? Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much for being with
pleasure.
us. Okay, then. Thank you all for joining us here at Perspectives of Interfaith. And we look forward to sharing with you in the very near future other people that may hopefully add more awareness and knowledge to your life. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.